Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, fresh back from Florida where my wife is spending a month. I'm basically starving to death. I probably look very skinny to you because I haven't eaten in days. You can always follow us on Twitter at SkiBucks1, Corey at EPSF.com if you have questions that you'd like us to answer on the podcast today. And every Thursday morning you can hear me on WCRF 103.3 in Cleveland, Ohio. Moody Radio also has an app, so you can listen from anywhere. That's moodyradio.org. But you can go on, if you have an iPhone, you go to the App Store. If you have an Android, I don't know, they probably got an App Store. I'm sure they do. And you can go there and you can download the Moody Radio app and listen to us from anywhere. And that's WCRF from 8 to 9 a.m. Thursday morning. So I was just there this morning. Or you can call here, 800-344-2534 if you'd like to talk with us or have us review something. We do that. And I know we just got back from an Amazon trip, but the way it works is on the way out of the Amazon, we're planning the next trip. I like to plan things. These things take a while to get rolling. People need dates. They have to request time off. And so we're looking at March of 26 again, March of 2026. To go to the Amazon. We may not dig a well this time, but we're definitely going to villages in the jungle. And so you'll be in the jungle and probably repairing wells, praying for people, going to homes. We'll share a meal with them. We'll go to the mission base, which is just, I got to tell you, it's extraordinary to see this thing pop out of the jungle. You park the boat, you can't see it yet. You got to walk up a hill, but when you get up there, it's like the Garden of Eden. The fruit that's growing there, the houses that are there that they built. They're working on a school building right now for the indigenous kids to come to and learn the basics. Learn the basics about the Bible, and then learn the basics like reading and writing. So you can support it. You can go on it. You can do a lot of things. Get in touch with me if you want to go. Our website is nativosusa.org. All of this stuff is running below me, and if you don't catch it, rewatch the podcast. Brian today on the radio didn't even know that I had a video podcast. I wanted to slap him, but that would be wrong to slap the host of the show. So that's 2026 Amazon planning. It takes a long time to get these things together. A lot has to come together, and that's how I'm 100% confident that God is involved in this because so many things have to come together. The timing, the weather, the supplies, the money, the travel, good health, all those things. So, well, let's talk about the market. I did gloat last time I was on the podcast a little bit because, as usual, we were right. And I don't think that we have a monopoly on being right. But I do think that we're right a lot about this. And what I'm right about is you have to buy the chaos. And the chaos in the market is still present. As I was driving back to the office today after a meeting, China is on the radio, China is in the news, rather, about how they're going to push President Trump to the brink. They're going to try and see how long he can go and see how much popularity he can lose before he buckles under the pressure. So China's practicing a little brinkmanship. And even though the markets are up today amongst this brinkmanship, China is at a significant disadvantage. I think this is one of the reasons why we have been, to a large degree, taken advantage of by China and some other countries because most politicians don't understand how much of an advantage the United States has over these countries. And what they see, well, China's making all this stuff for us. China's doing all this stuff for us, and they're doing it very cheaply. And if they stopped doing that, we would really be in trouble. And for a period of time, there would be an adjustment. There's no doubt. If China just said, hey, by the way, we're not making anything for the United States anymore, two things would happen. Well, probably three things. The markets would fall because that would be a lot of dislocation, and the market hates uncertainty. So even if they have certainty of something bad, they can price it, and it's way better. It's the uncertainty that really hurts the markets. So that would definitely happen. But the next thing that would happen is you'd see prices in the United States rise probably somewhat significantly on some things while we figured out who else was going to produce it. So there would be a time period where you would see some panic buying and things like that, probably somewhat akin to the pandemic. I remember walking in the Costco right on the front end of the pandemic, and there were people walking around with the orange carts filled with toilet paper. One guy had I'm not kidding, maybe 100 loaves of bread. I'm like, well, what are you going to do with all that bread? It's going to go bad within, a week. But there was a lot of panic buying. You'd see some of that. But even worse than that, China would go into an immediate depression. And the reason for that is, the reason why it would be far worse for China, because everything that they do for us, we've done before. We've done it all. Nixon went to China in the 70s. China didn't really open up until the 80s. So it's been about 40 years China's really been open for globalization business. It's not that long in the history of supply chains that they've been around producing stuff. We could do all of that stuff right here. We could put everybody to work right here. We would have a 0.5% unemployment rate. But we've done it before. In fact, we only ship about 20% of what China ships here, we ship to them. So the tariffs are far more egregious to them. They're paying way more money than we're paying to them in tariffs. So China is at a significant disadvantage. And most of the world, because they've oriented their economies to be export-laden economies, meaning they make things and they ship them out to the United States, the greatest consumer nation that's ever been. I mean, you look at Germany. Germany's laying off. Volkswagen owns, they own Audi, they own Volkswagen, they own Lamborghini, they own a lot of high-end car companies. They don't sell a lot of Lamborghinis, but they sell a lot of Volkswagens and Audis. And they make stuff there and then they ship it here. Well, if we told them you can't ship your stuff here, you got to make it here, they're going to be at a significant disadvantage because that's the vast majority of their business is export. Most Europeans don't have a lot of money. Their standard of living in Europe compared to yours and mine they're not even comparable. Now I know they'll say, well, we have free health care. That's great. Let me see you access it. Or they'll say, well, there's no private property here. Or we get taken care of in retirement at age 50. Yeah, but your tax rates are 75%. So by and large, the masses in Europe have capitulated to the government to say, okay, just take care of us. Yes, our lives will suck and we wait in line for bread, but at least you're taking care of us. Well, we're not like that. We do not, 99% of the population here does not want the government to take care of them. We want lower tax rates, more freedom, freedom of speech. In fact, do you remember Nina Jankowicz from the Biden administration? She was going to be the head of the Board of Disinformation, where they were going to root out disinformation. Well, at the time, disinformation was anything that you believed, but they didn't. So if you believe that COVID leaked from a lab, disinformation, you're not going to be allowed to say that. Well, in Europe, that still exists. In fact, she's in Europe this week preaching to the Europeans to oppose the United States and free speech. I'm not kidding. It's actually happening. Fortunately, that regime has ended here, and if anything, we're going to get way more free speech here than we've had recently because of the people that are in charge of the intelligence community, because of DOGE weeding out USAID, and all of the efforts that they made to throttle our speech, to confine our speech, to constrain our speech, those are over, at least for now. But you go to Europe, and their standard of living is horrible compared to ours. And there may be a small country here and there like Luxembourg that might have a higher standard of living than ours, but they don't have a lot of people there. I mean, we have 360 million people with a higher standard of living of most of Europe. So we are in the driver's seat here. And my impression of what President Trump is doing is using that driver's seat to force some change that will be good for everybody, because the way it should work is there's no tariff sending products there and there's no tariff sending products here. It's free trade. Now, you do have to kind of adjust a little bit for currency whenever you hear an S&P 500 company and they'll say profits will go up 5% constant currency, and that just means that's their cheap way of saying, well, we're not good at planning currency changes, so we want to pretend like that doesn't exist. It's kind of like EBITDA, which is the numbers are kind of a lie in a perfect world type scenario, but constant currency doesn't exist. Currencies change all the time. Currencies change from moment to moment. Oh, look at that. Currencies just changed. So you do have to, like, if somebody manipulates their currency, like China does not let their currency strengthen, then you put in some conditions on that, some guardrails, where if they're going to manipulate their currency to where everything we make is too expensive for the Chinese to buy, well, we're going to put some conditions on that. And so there is no such thing as constant currency. So we are in the driver's seat here, and we need to be a little bit more patient. I think by mid-July, we're going to be done talking about tariffs. I think the heavy lifting, the DOGE, the tariff regime, we're going to get permanent tax cuts. We might get a 15% corporate tax rate for C corporations. Every sub-S should think about changing to a C corporation at that time. So a lot of questions that I'm getting right now are, well, what can we buy that's insulated kind of from tariffs? And I'm going to go over a couple of things. I'm actually going to do something I don't normally do here. I'm going to name names. I'm going to name some companies. I'm going to give you something to chew on. Now, I'm not telling you to buy these things. What I'm telling you is it looks to me like these guys are somewhat insulated from a tariff impact if it were to actually go through. Now, I don't think it's going to go through, but in the meantime, people have to plan for it. And so you're seeing some of these companies do pretty well because of that. The first one would be Uber. What does Uber make? What does Uber make? Uber makes nothing, right? They make nothing. They don't import anything from China. I love Uber. There's been times I've traveled. Usually I rent a car when I go on the road, just because I like the freedom of being able to come and go as I please. But recently I have been a little bit more akin to Ubering, and I've done it for a long time. I mean, we were doing Uber in Brazil. I do it everywhere, but not having a rental car. I just had a horrible experience at Hertz where I rented a car, specific car. I got there like, oh, we're sold out. We don't have it. Just pick a car from over there. All the cars stunk. No satellite radio. I mean, I got to be honest with you. My Tushy is used to leather seats. Let me clarify. I don't want to sit on cloth seats. That's just not for me. I had to sit on cloth seats. It was horrible. So I'm much more likely to Uber now. And I like Uber. I like the stock. They're called Uber Technologies now because they're also selling computing space. I like Netflix. Now, Netflix is unique because they do send content to China, and that could be problematic. But most of the stuff that you're watching is made in either in the United States someplace or Canada, which I would be willing to deal with Canada on tariffs. I mean, I think we have to deal with Canada on tariffs. And it should be 0-0. That's the way it should be. We are their biggest trading partner by far. But there's one condition that they have to satisfy for me to go to zero tariffs on them, and that is they have to admit that their bacon is just a ham slice. And I want that in writing, that Canadian bacon is not bacon at all, and even when you cook it crispy, it's still just a ham slice. And I want one of their politicians to say it openly. I like Palantir. Palantir started out as kind of a government accounting software company, and they've morphed into an AI company that launches autonomous drones in the air, on the sea, on the ground. A lot of people think that they were partly responsible for the Israeli pager attack on Hezbollah. Genius move. Never seen anything like this before. This is straight out of a James Bond movie where they convinced them to buy pagers, new technology, and every terrorist wanted it because they're no different than us. They like new things and gadgets. You know, it's kind of a status symbol. And they had them for a year or so. And when they made sure that they all had them, and then, you know, October 7th happened, all of a sudden the Israelis sent a message that caused the pagers to blow up. There was actually a small amount of plastic explosives in the pager, so most of the terrorists had no hands. They blew off their legs, blew off some other parts, depending on where you wore that pager. I think they were afraid to turn on a blender for a while in the Palestinian territory. But I like Palantir. They're the consummate American company. When you hear their CEO, Alex Karp, talk, you get proud to be an American, I'm telling you. You got to just go on YouTube or go on Google, go on your Google machine and Google Alex Karp, K-A-R-P. Just watch a 2-minute video from him and tell me you're not proud to be an American. I like IBM. IBM produces most of their stuff right here in America. They produce their own chips. They do make supercomputers, but that's not their bread and butter anymore. This is a company that has reported recently. Now they talk a lot of constant currency because they sell a lot of stuff overseas. Just ignore that term. It's a meaningless term. It's a way to be lazy, actually, is what it is. And then the last name I'm going to give you today, and I'm going to start giving you a little bit more names to look at, investigate, do some research, talk to somebody. It's not a recommendation to buy or sell, okay? I can't do that on the podcast because I don't know anything about you. That wouldn't be fair to do to you or to me. I like Tesla. Tesla builds their cars here. And yeah, they do sell a lot in China, and they have some pretty stiff competition. BYD makes a pretty good car. From the looks of it, looks really nice. And I read in the Wall Street Journal yesterday that they've achieved 5-minute charging. I got to be honest with you, coming from China, I do not believe that. I think that is a plant story by the Chinese government. I don't think that they have 5-minute charging, and you're going to need to show me this for me to believe it. But I don't believe it, because one of the things that I do know is that Tesla is so far ahead in battery technology and charging technology that BYD isn't going to be close unless they stole it from Tesla, which I wouldn't put it past the Chinese because they steal everything. And then for a listener question today, I am getting this a lot, so it doesn't surprise me that it came in, but it's about precious metals. Now, I'm going to throw, I know I have been probably one of the bigger anti-crypto people out there initially. And the reason why was because there was so much fraud and theft and deceit surrounding the industry. You would try and sell a coin or, whatever you own, XRP or Bitcoin was the first big one really. And you try and sell it, and all you would do is get ripped off. And it's true, the Chinese, the North Koreans, the Iranians, they set up fake places to store your Bitcoin, and then they just steal it. So there was a lot of fraud and deceit, and I wasn't convinced that it would really be a viable investment choice. So I wasn't too big on it. I'm still not huge on it, but now there's places where you can put your Bitcoin. There's places where you can buy XRP and the myriad of other coins that are out there, like a Coinbase, like a Robinhood. These are legitimate exchanges, and you can put money there and feel safe, because if it gets stolen, they're going to have to replace it. I'm not saying theft won't happen, but if somebody breaks into your account and it was a breach on their end, they're going to be held accountable for that. So I would almost put coins, cryptocurrency, in the precious metal category. And the question I always get is, how much should I own and what should I buy? And my answer to you is, gold has not traditionally been a great investment. It is right now. It's had a good year so far. Generally, you will go through long periods of stagnation with precious metals. For that reason, especially gold, because gold does not really have an industrial use, but platinum, palladium, silver do. And so as economies tend to rebound and start building, and then pretty soon you're back to 18 million cars a year, a lot of those precious metals go into catalytic converters, automobile manufacturing, light bulbs, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of, I like the industrial side metals a little bit better, but how much should you own? I would say, if you're going to be a precious metal person, 5 to 7% of your portfolio. Now, I meet crypto bulls all the time where they'll say, well, I have all my money in crypto. I don't think that's a wise idea. But I wouldn't put all of your money in one stock either. I wouldn't put all your money in any one thing. So for somebody to say, I've got all my money in one thing, that tells me they have so much confidence in that they're not going to look at anything else. And I just think that's foolhardy. I think you could be a little bit less diversified. I'm okay with that. You're assuming the risk. But I want to have some fallback position. That's why somebody was in here the other day and they say, well, I know you don't like real estate. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I love real estate. I own real estate in my portfolio. Yes, I do. I don't own just stocks. Now, I am probably a more aggressive investor because I get it. I don't get freaked out when markets are down. In fact, I get excited because I can put money to work. It's way easier for me to buy a down market than it is a market that's just continually going up, because it's really hard to find value. It's hard to find the weak links in there. And I love the best companies. I mean, the best companies that you can get on the worst possible news. The best companies on the worst possible news. I bought Palantir a couple of weeks ago. I'm up 30% on those positions in a month. That's a significant return. The best companies on the worst possible news. I think of Boeing. Boeing had some bad news when the 737 MAX came out and people lost their lives. I don't want to see that kind of bad news. And it was preventable. And so they got punished for it. And they should. People went to prison, and they should, because they were trying to cut corners. Well, that is over. And they're doing good. They have a backlog of years on the 737 MAX. They call it the Dash 9. And they have years of backlog on the Dreamliner. There's only two companies that make a 2-aisle wide-body jet, and one of them is Boeing. That's an industrial that I could get behind. Now, they are going to be subject to tariffs because they ship overseas a lot. So that's one you would have to keep an eye on, but I still like them a lot. And it's a company that I can get behind. So that's how I'm approaching tariffs. That's how I approach precious metals. The last question people ask me is, how should I own it? Should I own the gold, the silver, the platinum, palladium, and keep it in a safe? Well, that's how I would do it. I don't want to have to pay to rent space in somebody's warehouse for my gold that may not even exist. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. So if you have a strong box that somebody can lift up and run off with, don't own the gold personally, or keep it in a safety deposit box. I want that. If your use case scenario is end of the world, cataclysm, the black swan event, you're going to want it at home. I don't know what you're going to do with it, and somebody with a gun can take your gold in a heartbeat. That's why I tell people my actual favorite precious metal is brass, because it fits into a 9mm really nice. But if you're going to own gold or any other precious metal, keep it in a safe if you're going to keep it at home, or a safety deposit box. I am David Safransky, a real American, a true red-blooded, gun-owning patriot, and the voice you can trust.